Welcome back to the Rise Up podcast, where we tackle the big questions and spark conversations that matter. I'm Sarah.
And I'm Alex. Today, we're diving into a classic debate that's been around for ages, the pros and cons of living in the countryside versus the city.
We've both experienced both worlds, so we're coming at this with some personal insights. Alex, you grew up in a small town but now call the city home, right?
That's right. I loved the close-knit community and slower pace of my hometown, but the city's energy and opportunities were a big draw for me.
And I'm the opposite. I was raised in a bustling city, but now I find myself drawn to the peace and quiet of rural life.
So let's get into it. We've got a lot to cover, from career opportunities and social life to cost of living and environmental impact.
Absolutely, and we want to hear from you, our listeners. Share your thoughts and experiences by leaving a comment below. All right, Alex, let's kick this off with career opportunities. I think it's fair to say that cities generally have a wider range of jobs, right?
No argument there. When I moved to the city, it was like a whole new world opened up. Corporate headquarters, tech startups, you name it. I found a job in marketing that I never would have even dreamed of back home.
But what about the creative fields? Aren't those more concentrated in cities too?
Definitely. Art galleries, music venues, theaters, they all thrive in urban environments. If you're an artist or performer, the city is where you're likely to find your audience.
That's true, but I think the landscape is changing a bit. With remote work becoming more common, people in creative fields can live anywhere they want. I have a friend who's a graphic designer, and she works from her farmhouse in the middle of nowhere.
That's a good point, and I'll admit there are some unique career opportunities in rural areas too. Agriculture, obviously, but also tourism, small businesses.
And don't forget about the trades. Plumbers, electricians, carpenters, they're always in demand in rural communities.
You're right, but I think it's important to acknowledge that the sheer number and variety of jobs in cities is hard to beat.
Agreed, but let's move on to social life. What's your take on that, Alex? You said you loved the close-knit community in your hometown, but you also enjoy the city's energy, right?
It's a bit of a trade-off, honestly. In my hometown, everyone knew everyone. We'd have block parties, potlucks, and just hang out on each other's porches. It was a real sense of belonging.
That sounds lovely. I grew up in an apartment building and I barely knew my neighbors.
But the city has its own kind of social scene. There are always events happening, new people to meet, different cultures to explore. It's exciting, but it can also be overwhelming.
I can imagine. I've visited friends in the city and it's always a whirlwind of activity. But I also find it exhausting after a while. I crave the slower pace and deeper connections I have in my rural community.
I get that. It's like apples and oranges. Both are delicious, but they offer different flavors.
Exactly, and that's the beauty of it. There's no right or wrong answer. It's all about finding the place that feels like home to you.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Wow, Alex, this conversation has really flown by. We've covered so much ground, and it's clear that both city and country living have their own unique charm.
I couldn't agree more. It's been fascinating to hear your perspective, Sarah, and to revisit my own experiences growing up in a small town and now living in the city.
And we've only scratched the surface. There are so many other aspects we could explore, like the impact of technology, the changing demographics of rural areas, and the rise of agri-hoods, those communities built around farms and sustainable living.
Definitely. Maybe we'll have to revisit this topic in a future episode. But for now, we want to hear from you, our listeners. Where do you stand on this debate? Are you drawn to the bright lights and endless possibilities of the city, or do you crave the tranquility and close-knit community of the countryside?
Share your thoughts and stories with us by leaving a comment below. We look forward to hearing from you and learning about your experiences.
And remember, there's no right or wrong answer. The best place to live is the one that makes you feel happy, fulfilled, and connected to your community.
Thanks for tuning in to the Rise Up podcast. We'll be back next week with another thought-provoking conversation. Until then, keep rising up and embracing the life that you choose.